You're in the VIP section of Black Women in Radio, the podcast, a decade of the new woman. I'm your host, Felicia Love, along with our special guest, Angela Stribling.
I found this picture it's part of the Buffalo History Channel. It was a picture of me as a little girl at the Juneteenth Festival.
Wow.
And, but it's been just that, though. It's just been Black people celebrating and having festivals in, various cities across the country. And you're so right, Felicia, it's never been a time when there's been a consideration of this being a national holiday or people giving it any kind of, significant attention that it's long deserved. So
that's a really neat piece of history for you. I'd love to see that. Are you going to post it?
It's posted. Go to my IG page and don't laugh.
Oh, I love it. I can't wait to see it.
You might laugh when you see it. I was a teenager. I was a little girl.
No harder than I laugh at my stuff. Boy, I tell you, sometimes I have to do a double take and go, oh my gosh, that is me.
Is that me? Right. I was like, you know what this isn't about. I just figured I'll be brave, and it's the significance of the era, and just I don't even know who took that picture, and but I'm happy to be a part of the history there.
Well, that's really huge, and like I said just a moment ago off camera, this is the first time we're seeing something this significant. There's nothing. Well, at least in my family, it's always been someone maybe mentioning it and the significance of it. But now in 2020, we get an opportunity to create it and make it what we want it to be. One race. And how we want to celebrate it moving forward. And this is huge. There's just so many possibilities. So, I don't know if you feel this way, but with all of the ups and downs emotionally that we've had over the last few weeks with COVID, and then now with race relations significantly for Black people, it has been a touch of trauma, feeling depression, feeling confusion. And it's just been this, mix of emotions. But even while we're experiencing this, I'm getting a sense that this is a way that we can rebuild and recreate the kind of world and community that we want to live in. Do you get that sense?
Oh, do I ever? In fact, I recently had another conversation like this. I've been talking about this. God in his infinite wisdom. When you read the Bible, and I do, there have been some tragic ways that God has gotten his people's attention. Many have died, many were sacrificed, and it all affected change, positive change in the end. And it's the same God now that it was, that many years ago. And I don't think it's any mistake that this pandemic happened first. We're all at home, and for us to all witness, for the world to witness the death of George Floyd. I mean, yes, there have been so many Black people who have been so unfortunate and died at the hands of these police officers. Absolutely. But it was kind of like, okay, next. It just kept happening. Now the world is at home because of the pandemic, and you cannot deny it. The world is seeing this image over and over and over again. Mm-hmm. And now, because of that, I mean, who can deny it? Who can ignore it? It's like, wow, these human beings are being treated like this.
Right.
So as you were just saying, now with Juneteenth being here, it's being looked at in a different way, finally, with, the images like the Aunt Jemima image that was on the bottle, for people to finally say, you know what, maybe this isn't the most positive. Where, all of these things right now, it's powerful. We have suffered for so long. We are American people. Yes. We're not, weren't brought here by choice. And, so many horrific things have happened to our people. And now America, or the world, is waking up. I hope and pray. And, I can only hope and pray that change is here, that change really, real change, not just a Band-Aid here and a Band-Aid there and a pacifier here, but real change. We're all human beings.
Absolutely. And I believe that in my whole heart of hearts, that all is one. I believe that with all of my heart. And I also believe that some of us are here on earth to teach people that very thing. It's not skin color, it's a human race. But we all have to have that mindset though, in order to see that work. And so each family has that family member that you just can't get through to. It's like no matter what, Uncle Joe or Aunt May is gonna just be their radical selves, and there's no way to bring them in.
Oh yeah, we do have that family member.
We all have that family member.
Yes.
And it just kind of reminds me that on a macro scale, on a larger scale, that there are going to be people who just won't get it and don't want to get it. And that has to be fine with us. We'll have to figure out a way to get along and create this world that we want to live in.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, there are a lot of teachable moments along the way. And there are a lot of people who are willing to listen. Or change is not necessarily easy for everybody. I know even for myself, I really have to work on Felicia in order to take in the change, but I'm open to it. And I think that you and I and Black women in radio and people all over the world, no matter whether they are with an organization or not, have a wonderful opportunity to have teachable moments, but first with compassion.
Yes, I totally agree. And I love the way you pronounce your name.
Oh.
Felicia. Oh, it's so pretty. It's very unique. I've never heard that pronunciation.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you so much. My mom would absolutely adore that. I think I spent half my life allowing people to call me Felicia because it was easy.
Yeah. Right. Because you look at the spelling and it's a different spelling, but then you think, okay, Felicia, but it's Felicia. That's beautiful. Yeah.
Thank
Your mom
you.
did good.
Well, she'd love to hear that. Well, I was a rebel there for a while. Thank you so much. I am thrilled to be able to have a conversation about how we feel about the race relations, because I know just skimming the pages on social media with Black women in radio, we have a wide spectrum of how we feel and how we are coping. And this is the second conversation. I had another conversation with Yvonne Daniels, I think it was just last week. She's in Michigan. She's a programmer in Michigan. And we did have a discussion about that. But Juneteenth on this day, it's pretty
perfect.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty significant.
Yeah.
And you're so right. Just using our platforms, because you're right. We're all different. We all receive information differently. We filter it through our own experiences, right? We all,
exactly.
We all have a choice to do that. And my feeling has been, it's a great opportunity to use my platform to, as you said, to teach. And for those who might not be watching the news as much as I am, it's another great opportunity to say, okay, maybe you're on Instagram, maybe you're on Facebook, maybe you're on Twitter, and I'll post different things that, are letting Black Lives Matter. This is what's going on in the world. But then it has to be a balance as well, because it's a lot.
I love that you said that. It does have to be a balance. Even with us putting the information and the news out, there has to be a balance. But please go ahead. I'm so glad you mentioned that. Yeah.
Yeah, because it is a lot and it's powerful. 2020 came in like a lion and it doesn't show any signs of letting up. This is a lot. It hit all of us like, okay,
what was that?
What is going on? But it's here. And so, I think just as women, we have to protect ourselves. I don't know about you, Felicia, but I am very sensitive. And this is a lot to take on and a lot to take in. So to protect myself, I read a lot, I watch a lot of what's going on, but then sometimes I've got to press pause and, maybe do something completely different, watch a movie, read a book, and just regroup. And it's kind of reflected on my page as well, where, I'm posting a lot of Black Lives Matter and, a lot of things that are hard to look at and hard to watch. But I'm also posting, hey, I see you. I love you. I want to encourage you to keep going. You are a blessing. Be a blessing. I, post spiritual things and just things from the heart, things that I really feel, because I really do love God's people, and I look at having the opportunity to be a broadcaster for so many years in television and radio as an opportunity to just really, inspire God's people.
I think that we are going to be all right, because there are more people like you and I than there are radical people who cannot embrace humanity and embrace love. And so just listening to you even talk about how you balance all of the negative energy and influences that we're getting at the moment, and like creating more positivity so that people have hope and something to look forward to is very important. Otherwise, we'll all be depressed.
We'll all be depressed. And look, many of us are still social distancing. I know I am. I'm working from home for the most part. However, when the protests started, I did go into the station and I did the Quiet Storm for a couple of weeks just to be able to be there, because people wanted to talk, just to be there to talk to people and, to give up-to-date information. But now I'm back home social distancing. A lot of people are at home by themselves and can get very overwhelmed and depressed. Mm-hmm. And, I don't want that to happen, but I can see how easily it can happen. And so anyone who is paying attention to what I'm doing, I want to say, look, you're not alone. We're going to get through this, and we're all in this together.
And I think that is the most important message that we could possibly send to all of humanity, is that you're not alone. You're not alone in feeling your anger or disappointment or outrage or confusion. Because like you said, you're very sensitive. I am too, very sensitive when it comes to people's energy and negative energy. And if I don't have a positive outlet or something to hold on to, it's a slippery slope, right?
Yes.
It's a slippery slope.
And so my go-to, because I do get overwhelmed sometimes too, and so I'll just unplug and meditate or pray or, call my 94-year-old godmother and just, see how she's doing, or talk to my 84-year-old mom, or just reach out to someone who I know can just, use an ear, just try to give, they say when you want love, give love. When you want something, give it. That really works.
Believe that. I absolutely believe that.
If you're feeling lonely, find somebody who's maybe a little lonelier than you are and just be a friend. Mm-hmm. All those things, it's amazing how it works.
It absolutely is. And it's so funny. You and I have never met each other.
No, but I think we're kindred spirits.
It feels that way, doesn't it? It absolutely does. But you made a gesture that was just absolutely heartfelt. Not long ago, you sent a text, a DM, and said, just checking in to see how you were doing. Angela, I have to tell you, that day, I needed it. I needed someone to say, I see you, I'm loving on you, I'm thinking about you. And for it to come from someone that I've never met, I just looked at it as God sending an angel. It was beautiful. And it wasn't a long text or anything. It's just a check-in. And so I paid it forward as well. I got on my email and I sent a couple of blasts out to some Black women in radio who I've had, one or two touch point conversations with, because it lifted my spirit. And so I am so glad that we have an opportunity to share this on the podcast, how important it is. If you're feeling lonely, just send a note, just let someone know. And I'm here to tell you, and it's great to be able to tell you it was so heartfelt and so needed, because
It's
I was in
beautiful.
one of those moments where, I'm usually the one that's sprinkling pixie dust all over people
Yes.
and loving on
Well, we're
people.
human. We're human. You're sensitive, and that is such a beautiful thing. I love that you're sensitive. That's something to protect.
Yes.
Don't run from that. Keep it, that's a sacred thing, to be able to feel people. You don't ever want to not have that. I mean, it's a lot. It's
It's
a
a
lot to take
lot.
on.
Yeah.
It's a challenge and can be challenging, but it's a beautiful gift.
I've got to ask you, when did you notice that you were, and I call it spiritually sensitive,
Yeah.
because it's empathy. It's
Yeah.
like an empath. You can feel
Yeah.
other people's pain sometimes, or
Yeah.
happiness even. But when did you notice that you needed to protect that? Because that's been I guess a spiritual lesson for me, to learn that I needed to protect it, because I would attract people who would take that
Oh,
energy
yeah.
from me, but I hadn't learned how to protect it. So it's interesting that you mentioned that. How did you navigate?
It's a really good question, because you're right. I mean, you give, you give, you give, you give, and people will take, take, take. It's human nature.
Yeah.
But you don't realize that, someone will call you up and they've got all kinds of problems. You're the one they're going to call, because they'll get exactly what they need from you.
Yeah.
But by the end of the conversation, you're a wreck. You're depleted. You're like, wait a minute. They're fine. They're feeling like, wow, I'm so glad I called you. You're like, really?
Exactly.
I know. So
Somebody
yes,
send a
I
life
am
raft for me.
a life raft, and meanwhile they've hung up. You're like, okay, you're
What do I
done.
do with that?
What do
Yes.
I do with that? And so my grandmother, at a very young age, kind of took notice of how I deal with people. And she was telling me, you're a natural healer, you're an empath.
Mm.
And would, just kind of tell me, this is good to give, but try to, make sure you protect yourself, take care of yourself. So it was her, in her wisdom. May she rest in peace. I miss my granny.
Oh.
But I'm grateful to her, because I didn't know what any of that was. I didn't know what an empath was. But there are a few of us walking around.
There are a few of us walking around, and a few of us who are walking around trying to figure out what to do with that energy too. Because we talked a little bit earlier about COVID slowing us down, and for us being kind of numb to just the brutality that we've seen in our day-to-day lives, just being really numb to it until this horrible incident with Mr. Floyd. But people who are empaths are very sensitive to that. I think are more susceptible to depression, because they don't know how to balance their energy, and they don't understand where all of this is coming from,
Right.
because their day-to-day
Right.
lives may be looking just fine, but they're feeling this
All of
heaviness.
a sudden. Yeah.
Yes. So God bless
Yeah.
your grandmother for telling. Nobody told me, so I was just like flailing around like a fish out of water,
Giving all your energy to the world, whoever walks up. But you know what? You're right. I mean, it's easy to fall into, depression and just feeling overwhelmed. I'm so grateful that it's rare that I'm down. I don't suffer from any kind of depression.
You've learned how to
And
balance it, and
at
that's
an
the
early
key.
age,
Mm-hmm.
and tend to be a lot more, on the upbeat side.
Yeah.
And I do have that too. I do have my parents and my grandparents to thank for that, because it's just as easy to kind of lean to the positive, especially when you need it a little bit more. Those are the times that you've got to just unplug and find something positive to read.
Yes.
Just fill yourself up with as much positivity as you can.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's my remedy.
You know what does it for me? Comedy or music.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I have to be selective with what music, so it can't be lovey-dovey music if that's at the moment I'm single.
Right. You're like, no.
This is not working.
That's so funny. That's so real.
You have to put I know. You have to put a a shield on in order to listen to, too much Luther or Kim. I'm like,
exactly.
Well, why are you doing this to me?
Yes. Yes. And you're crying.
Hilarious. Although I love that music. It depends on my mood, so if I'm, like you just mentioned, trying to lift myself out of this funk, no, I have to wait until I'm in a better mood.
You have to turn on something completely different. Top 40.
Salsa, anything.
Music, anything. Or comedy, like you said. That's always great.
Or I watch comedy. And I honestly believe that comedy and music are healing. And and that's one way that I fill myself up. So when I'm feeling too much heaviness, and the interesting thing about empaths is that you'll feel the heaviness, but it's not yours. It belongs to someone else. And that's what I meant by you were able to navigate it early.
Well, that's an important thing to figure out, because
that is.
What I do if I'm seriously, like, you'll be feeling fine, and then all of a sudden there's this shadow, this dark feeling.
Yes.
And so what I've learned to do is just stop right there, and then I'll just kind of go through, okay, what just happened? And go in my mind, I'll just walk it back and pinpoint what it is that has me down, and then just face it on and then move on. Because if you don't do that, you'll just carry it with you, and you're like, why am I feeling like this?
No idea why you're feeling that way, why you're snapping at other people. I do coaching, wellness coaching, mind, body, spirit coaching. And
Beautiful.
When I talk to some, especially parents, who may work a 9-to-5, I always encourage them to either stay in the car or go someplace where they can decompress. Never decompress at home, because you're taking the day's energy with you. And that's how a lot of parents are, snapping at
it's good
their
advice.
loved ones, to decompress. So, oh my gosh, I am so thrilled we had this conversation.
Me too. Me too.
You don't get these kind of conversations very often, because people are like, what do you mean? Why are you feeling that way? But that you are absolutely right. Now I have learned that when I'm hit with an emotion that does not feel like my own, I stop. Now, I used to run from it. I used to say, oh my gosh, why did I feel this way? Well, I'm going to run a little bit more, or go to the gym, or, buy something, or.
Ooh, that's always great. Little retail therapy.
Little retail therapy. But it's not their credit card. It's not,
Right. But that darkness, that heavy feeling doesn't go anywhere if you don't deal with it.
It does not. It still doesn't go anywhere. Isn't that right? Yeah. So I've learned to stop. And what I've noticed too is that if it belongs to someone else, it'll come to me. It'll come to me who that belongs to. Oddly enough, whether I'm talking to that person or not, it'll come to me. So
you'll figure it out. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Well, anybody that's listening and watching to this podcast, empathy or empath is very real. And if you think that you are very sensitive to energy, please talk to somebody, because it will kind of drive you a little, uncomfortable.
Be overwhelming. Yeah. Yeah. Uncomfortable. Yes. Exactly.
Oh my gosh. Well, I feel like kindred spirits now. This is great. This is great. This is not a normal conversation. I was really hoping that by opening the Black Women in Radio podcast, that us as a broadcast community could demonstrate how similar we are in many aspects, and how versatile we are, and diverse, we are. And you don't necessarily get those kind of conversations in our perspective platforms, right? Because there's no reason to talk about it. Right,
exactly. Play the music.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, I love it. Well, tell us a little bit about your very diverse career, because, oh my gosh, I can't wait to get into, you are a professional singer and a recording artist. You are a radio broadcaster and a very, very prominent television broadcaster.
Thank
And
you.
you've had so many opportunities to fill sectors of music with your personality and your knowledge. So fill those who are not familiar with you, fill them in.
Okay, I'll give you the short version. We'll be here
I'm
all
not sure
day.
if we want the short version because it's really rich history, but yes,
Thank
go ahead.
you. Well, I'll start with music.
Well, it's a marvelous night for a moon dance with the stars up above in your eyes. A fantabulous night to make romance neath the cover of October skies. And all the leaves on the trees are falling to the sound of the breezes that blow. And I'm trying to please to the calling of your heartstrings that play soft and low. And all the night's magic seems to whisper and hush. And all the soft moonlight seems to shine in your blush. And I just have one more moon dance with you, my love. And I just make some more romance with you, my love. Well, I wanna make love to you tonight.
I've always been a fan of music and singing. You know, my parents, there was always music on in the house. My mom isn't a professional singer, but she's always, you know, singing. And in fact, my voice is just like my mother's. I talk just like her. My voice, the tonality is just like
Oh,
my mom's. Even though as a kid I deny it. I'm like, no, I sound like
I don't want to
me.
sound like
I
mom.
sound just like her. Right? Just
So
like my
funny.
mother. And so I, you know, started singing really, really early in my life, and, you know, started taking classes, classically trained. And to fast forward, I started training with this woman, Ronnie Wells, when I had moved to Washington, D.C. She was an amazing jazz vocalist. Kind of reminds you of a Sarah Vaughan, you know, type. And
Oh,
her
yes.
husband, Ron Elliston, was a very accomplished pianist. And those two would, you know, travel around the world performing, and they'd also take on clients. So I was fortunate enough to start studying with Ronnie. And this was, you know, I was already in DC and, you know, on television and radio. And she's like, girl, what are you doing? You need to get out and sing in public. You know, I was doing it, but just for me. But, you know, I started booking gigs, and it, you know, kind of took on a life of its own, and would perform overseas quite a bit. There was, I guess, 1998 until 2003, something like that. I had moved to New York and started performing overseas, compliments of Hennessy. And they liked what I was doing, ended up getting an agent, and started singing jazz overseas. So for about 10 years, I was, you know, spending most of my life over there performing back and forth. And so to back up, as a kid, I always felt like if I wasn't listening to the radio, I was just not, you know, I didn't know what was going on in the world. So I
Yes.
always had just a fascination and a love for radio. Growing up in Buffalo, New York, you know, I would always listen to music, you know, R&B mostly. But then at age 19, I met a friend who was into jazz, straight ahead jazz. And, you know, I had listened to, you know, jazz, but, you know, my mom in particular loved Sarah Vaughan, Nancy Wilson, Dionne Warwick,
The
and, you know, just
greats,
a
yes.
varied, yeah, very, you know, taste in music. But I was familiar with jazz, but didn't really know a lot about straight ahead jazz. And so my friend just introduced me to this collection of this amazing music, and I fell in love with it. So decided, you know, that was my favorite music, along with R&B, of course. And anyway, so that, you know, take that along with meeting Ronnie Wells finally, that I guess, kind of influenced me becoming a jazz singer. That was the short version, short version of that.
Well, when you've lived your life, and somebody, that's a quote from somebody, when you really lived your life and lived it to its fullest, there's no short version.
There's no short version. I mean, and I kind of feel like everything that I do kind of feeds the other, because with the television industry, so I was already in radio. I've done everything in radio. Actually started off doing voiceovers and sales, and ended up, they finally gave me a break and let me be on the air, which is what I wanted all along.
I read that in your bio, and it was so interesting. What I love it when people are honest, because when you share some of the challenges that you've had in your life, it's so relatable. And you said something to the fact that they, no one would give you a job, and here it is. It's like, are you kidding me?
It's so funny. I mean, it was kind of a double-edged thing. They gave me the job because they liked my voice, and I had hardly any experience in anything. They said, okay, we have a sales opening, so we'll hire you for that, but then you can do the imaging and the voiceovers. I just felt like, just let me in. Yes. Just get me in. I will figure it out. And I did. It all worked out in the end.
Yes, it all works out in the end. But it's just so funny. It's like, judging from where you are now, I'm sure, people are like, what was I thinking? Telling Angela no.
It's all good.
Oh,
it's all good. Because you know what? I'm happy that my path was as it was, because I had an opportunity, honestly, to learn every single thing in this medium. So, you know what I mean? I can do anything. I can run a radio station. I can run a television station, should I, choose to go that route. And, when I started Pillow Talk with Angela, I own the radio show. And because of my experience in sales, I'm able to go out and get my own sponsors for it. And, it's kind of like everything kind of has a reason. Mm-hmm. Thankfully, I had that experience doing that. And with television, I was doing this television show. So it's so long ago. It was Evening Magazine in Baltimore. So I was doing these segments on Evening Magazine. And then some producers in Washington, D.C. asked me if I wanted to come in and audition for this television show called Washington Style on Channel 50, just a little show, and ended up getting that. And then the producer of Video Soul on BET said, hey, I saw you on Washington Style. Donnie Simpson gets the summers off, and we're looking for someone to sit in. Do you want to come and audition?
Let's talk about your history. You're originally from New Jersey?
Originally from the Bronx.
Okay.
New York.
And so I auditioned, and they hired me on the spot, which was such a blessing. And then, the rest is kind of history. Created this radio show. Melvin Lindsey and I started hosting Screen Scene together. And he was my very best friend. And Melvin Lindsey, created the Quiet Storm radio format. And that's the show that I'm hosting now on WHUR radio. We've come full circle.
Life does that, doesn't it?
Crazy, right?
Wasn't I here before?
Right. Oh my goodness. I love it. I love it so much.
That's
being able to kind of honor, I really do. I feel like it's, may he rest in peace. And he taught me so much just about that radio format, just, from what he brought to it. His taste in music, his choice in what he would play on the radio, his presentation on the radio, and, him just being his beautiful self. He was he was such a gentleman, and, had such a sense of humor, and just such a love for his people. Melvin was the kind of person, he was a quality human being, and when I say that, he wasn't afraid of, people would come up to him all the time. And most people who have been in television and radio, people always come up, or voiceovers, they come up always and say, hey, I want to do what you do. Can you help me? And unlike Melvin was, we were both the same, just very generous with our time and giving people the information. And you know what I mean? It's like, if that's what you want to do, I feel like it's my obligation to help you. And, I always appreciated that about Melvin, and we both were alike with that. And people would come up to us at the same time, and we'd both be like, hey, call this person, call that person, email this, do that, send this, keep pushing, you can do it, that kind of thing.
Yes.
And versus, other people in various industries, it's a tough industry, and sometimes people can get a little bit insecure, and they're not going to tell you a thing.
There's a lot
have
of that. Yes.
Yes, when I was trying to break in, and I was like, wow, nobody called. Okay, nobody's calling me that. Well, okay, and you just go a different route.
Yes, and go full circle. Because when you have a talent and a hunger for an experience, I really believe that sometimes we have to divert, but we still end up in that same industry or that same expression of talent. Will have an opportunity.
There's no stopping. There is no stopping. Mm-hmm. Just in anything, as I tell a lot of the younger people, especially the young women who I mentor, I just say, if it is something that is on your heart to do, you have to do it. You have to keep going. The no is just look at it as an opportunity to keep pushing, find another way, find another route. There's, there are going to be some no's, but don't let that discourage you. Just keep pushing.
Wow. I sure wish I had a mentor in my career. I did not. So that it made it even tougher and a lot of hard lessons. But just hearing that from another person, just keep going, makes you understand that you're not crazy because it's a desire that you have in your heart.
Yeah.
You may not be able to figure out how it's going to happen, but that's not your job. Your job is to just keep going. And sometimes you just need someone to tell you that.
Yes, sometimes you need someone to tell you that, and to be open to, a little bit of criticism and a little bit of tweaking here and there, to be open to that. But at the same time, a lot of well-meaning people will mess you up. And I say that because you might have an idea that really is perfect in and of itself. And then someone who you admire might say, oh, no, don't do it. You'll get this, or that's not going to work for you.
Right.
Maybe you shouldn't listen to them. And so you've got to run it through your own filter. If there's some tweaking that you think maybe can make you better, yes, be open to that. But don't abandon your dreams. And if it's something that, you think, okay, maybe that tweaking isn't going to work for me, then just, don't do it.
It doesn't apply to you. Yeah.
It doesn't apply to you. So there, it's kind of a double thing.
Exactly. And at the end of the day, you're training yourself how to follow your own intuition,
Yes.
So even if you have people along the way to uplift you and to give you a reality check, because I used to call my sister that. She was, I bounced something off of her and she'd say, yeah, well, that doesn't sound, doesn't sound too sound, Felicia. Then I would rethink it and repackage it and try again. What's one of the pieces of advice that you found yourself saying over and over again to people? Is there any?
The over and over again to people is the don't stop. The over and over is the don't stop. Because even if, for instance, I started my career when I was in sales. I would, it wasn't like they said, okay, here's a list of these top advertising agencies. Go get them, Angela. Oh, no. There was no list. It was, okay, just go door to door.
Yes.
Whatever new business you can bring in, go get them, Ange. So it was, retail, people who have never advertised on the radio. So that's fine. And I did very well, and I'm proud of that. But what that meant is I had to do their commercials. So I learned to write commercials and to do their voiceovers. So I got a great reputation of doing voiceovers, and thank God that is my number one source of income these days. That, supersedes everything else. That's my biggest thing. So people are constantly coming up, oh, thank you, Jesus. People are constantly coming up and saying, hey, I heard you on this, I don't know, this, national commercial. I want to do that. People tell me I have a good voice. I want to do commercials. Okay, good. I might even give them a script or two and have them read it for me, get back to me, and I'll give you a little critique. Sometimes people don't want to hear the critique, and then they give up. And what I find myself saying is, no. If this is in your heart and this is something you want to do, I don't want to crush your dreams. If I come back and say, okay, you're just reading this.
Yeah,
and there's a voiceover, you need to sell it. I need you to act. I need to believe you. I need to be inspired. I need to be inspired to go out and buy whatever it is you're selling.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying you suck.
Right.
I'm saying, okay, good voice, but try it this way. So what I find myself saying again and again and again is, don't give up. If this is something you want to do, at least give it a fair shot. And then after you've really tried it, then determine whether or not this is something that you want to pursue. But don't bail too soon. Give yourself a chance.
Absolutely. And voice inflection is a thing. And you do have to become the master of it.
Yes. It takes time. It's more than a notion. It's, you hear it. And that thing rings true over and over again. People hear it and they say, oh, I could do that. I'm like, okay, let's go. And it's a lot harder than it seems.
It is. I've heard it several ways. Throwing your voice, and as a singer, oh my gosh! You are the perfect person to know how to throw your voice.
You learn a lot of different things as a singer.
Yeah, and breathing, even singing and doing copy. There's breath work there. There's a rhythm there.
Absolutely.
So sometimes those are things that you can teach. A new broadcaster. Or I remember right in the middle of my career, I got a position, and I was told by the program director not to, give so much voice inflection, I guess. That voice that we used to use.
Yes, the old announcer voice.
Yes, the old announcer voice. And I couldn't for the life of me hear what he was hearing. So I was like, well, it sounds like, it is me. He was like, no, that doesn't sound like you. That's not. So it took me forever to figure out to use a conversational voice as opposed to the announcer voice,
Yes.
But without
it's hard.
It's interesting, especially when you're used to doing it one way.
Right. And then you don't even realize it. You don't even realize it. You're announcing. Yeah. I've had that critique as well. Especially, when it's something, I do a lot of the on-camera narrations too, and, if it's something that it's a training film. So people need to relate to what you're talking about. Right. They don't want to just hear the words. They need to feel what you're saying. They need to relate, and as an announcer, nobody's going to pay you any attention. You need to communicate with people.
That's exactly true. I'm glad we're having this conversation because we are now at another crossroad where the sound of the announcer or radio personality is different than it was even 10 years ago.
Yes, it is. It's very different. Like it or not, it's very different because there used to be a lot of emphasis on, how to say this, just being really articulate and, like a lot of news anchors or whatever.
Enunciating your words, every word. Mm-hmm.
Every word. Now, not so much.
Not so much,
depending on, the format. They want you to sound like, a lot of people just talk every day.
Yeah.
And that could be not so articulate. That could be just, street vernacular, if you will.
Yes.
And, it could be, I remember when I was on BET and people were saying, okay, oh yeah, we had Rap City and Teen
Yes.
Summit and all these shows. I'm going way back in the day.
But that's when I remember you. I remember seeing you for the first time then.
Yes, thank you. I'm so proud of those days. I mean, we had no idea what, how great it was. But looking back at it,
and what an
we created
impact
something.
too.
It had such an impact.
Mm-hmm.
And, I remember, though, with the rap shows, and, they would audition different people for doing Rap City, and they didn't want anyone. They wanted people who sounded like rappers. They wanted people who were in the world of, the whole rap scene.
Mm-hmm.
And that was really something. They were saying now, they were canceling out people who were just a little bit too articulate.
I was one of them.
Did you try? Were you trying to be on Rap City?
No,
that would
not
have
on
been hilarious.
I know, right? Not on Rap City, but I was one of the first I keep saying radio programming. I don't know why. That's stuck in my brain. Anyway, I was one of the first radio personalities here in Atlanta to do hip hop for Radio 1. And so it lasted maybe 4 years or so. And then it started leaning in toward a different sound. And so I kind of fell into that, you're sounding too proper category.
Right.
Yeah. And
Love
I
you,
was
babe,
like,
but
I was like,
not what we're looking for. Me?
Exactly. I'm like, where'd the English language go? I don't understand. How did it leave me?
Different. Right. It's different.
Very different. Yeah.
I mean, I get it, but it's different. So, what you learn is there are just certain shows that I know I'm just not the one you want for that. Don't,
exactly.
Don't call me for that, because I'm not going to try to fake it, because I don't like that sound either. I've heard,
I've heard just say that
personalities. I've heard personalities who are articulate normally,
mm-hmm.
and if that's even the word that I'm looking for, who talk a certain way, and then try to talk like, more
they're
like
hip.
Yeah, and they're not hip, and it's like that's not working for me.
That's not you. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And you can hear it. You can hear it. I've heard it a couple of times. Male or female. If it doesn't, no. It's like being caught.
I already know. I'm not the coolest person in the room. Not when it comes to that anyway.
Not that version of cool. Yeah.
Not that version of cool.
Mm-hmm.
So, I know my limitations. Don't call me for that. That's not the booking I'm looking for.
And I think
you
that's
don't want
very
it either.
Important. Yeah, right? Trying way too hard.
Yeah, if, whoever is doing the booking, it's like, people, you don't want me for that. Trust me, just, yeah.
And this is very important to talk about, because I have had my dreams crushed more than one time, being accused of not sounding Black enough, which I was like,
it's not right, because you
not
sound
see me?
plenty Black. Thank you. You know what? Listen, I had this audition a long time ago. There was this casting agency in DC, one of the major casting agencies, and they liked me a lot. They were sending me out a lot, booking me for so much, especially with voiceovers. And then one day I'm not going to say her name, because I still love her and I know she still loves me, but she has to know that I was dead wrong.
Oh,
she calls me in and she goes, "Okay, Angela," she's German.
Mm-hmm.
"We love you, and I want you to take this demo tape." It was my commercial demo. And she said, "I want you to take this demo, and I want you to give me another one with more of a street vernacular." I was like, "What?" She said, "I want you to sound a little bit more Black." I go, "I do sound Black."
Exactly.
She goes, "You know what I mean. I just want you to sound more street, if you can." I go, Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I go, and I was like, okay. And I'm calling my friends like, okay, this is what I am challenged with.
Mm-hmm.
And I went and tried to put something together, which I should never have done, but I did.
Mm-hmm.
And it was so terrible. I let my mom hear it, and she was cracking up. She's like, "Girl, don't you dare let anybody hear this. I was like, well, I'm going to give it to her. I'm going to give it to her.
Yeah.
And I did. She just looked at me and said, okay, Angela, we're good with the first one that you gave us. I'm so sorry. She never brought it up again, you know, and I said, listen, I'm Black. My parents are Black. We all talk like this. A lot of Black people talk the way I talk.
Exactly.
Black people speak like this.
I was just so confused. I mean, and this for me, it was an advertiser who said that, and I thought,
how do you respond?
Where do you go with that? I mean, you know,
Yeah.
and then I also remember a lot of programmers, you know, with urban formats coming on board. They were getting rid of a lot of people who came through the ranks with me, and, you know, hiring younger people who did not go to broadcasting school or did not learn the announcer's way of broadcasting, and you know, just didn't have that background, and so they just kind of fell into that, I guess, street vernacular that people were looking for. But then after a while, the format started to sound like trash. So, you know, it's like, everybody can't sound like that now. Come on now.
Right. Mix it up a little bit. You know, a little bit of this, a little bit of that.
Everybody can't sound like that. Come on. Yeah. I mean, all of us have a family member or two that sounds like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
boy.
No, good. I mean, we come in many shades. We come speaking different ways. You know, we are a rainbow, a beautiful rainbow of people. Don't put us in a box.
Absolutely. And I'm really praying that this platform proves that. That was my goal, is to get all of us together so that we can demonstrate just how versatile and beautiful we are. And because we're used to being put in a box, right? And two boxes, radio or TV, you know?
Right.
You have a certain sound for television. You have a certain sound for radio. And
that's right.
And it's not, because we have been for so long morphing into people's idea of who we are or who we should be. And we haven't had enough opportunity to express who we are. And I want Black women in radio, in every facet of its programming and opportunity, to demonstrate that to America. That's my
beautiful
goal.
I love what you're doing. And I know I've told you this. I love the fact that you created this platform for Black women in broadcasting, radio in particular. It's a great forum, and you're always celebrating us. Thank you.
You are so welcome. And I am so thrilled that it makes a difference, because, you know, we were just talking about that a moment ago, Angela, something that's, you know, resonating with you. You can't stop, although other people don't see it. And that's very true for Black women in radio. People were, you know, well, there are women organizations. Well, no, that's not quite what we're doing. We're doing something a little bit different, but you have to create it and keep doing what you believe in, and then people will come and understand, because I know we've been doing this for 3 years now, and we have organic followers. You know, we have people who really care about the platform and really want to see what we're doing. So that's the really cool thing. But I mean, 3 years later, though, I mean, so you know, had I stopped a year out, it would have been a wrap.
Exactly. It would have been a wrap. We would have never met.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I am curious about your travels. Would you share a little bit? I love traveling. So where did you travel?
I love traveling so much. So prior to what I described to you, you know, being over there singing jazz for so long, I, you know, did a lot of European travel just on my own, vacationing. So, I mean, almost everywhere, with the exception of Australia and New Zealand. I haven't been there, but I've been to, you know, most of Europe. I have not been to Spain. I have not been to South America. So a lot of European travel, and then a lot, I mean, pretty much everywhere in the Caribbean, which I'm proud of and I just love. I've been to Asia. Now, my first time going to Asia was Compliments of Hennessy. I was, living in New York, and my saxophonist, I was singing a lot, singing at the Blue Note in New York, singing at this place called the Soul Cafe, which, it's unfortunately no longer there, but singing, a lot of spots around New York. And my saxophonist came to me one day and said, hey, I've got this relationship with somebody at Hennessy, and they're looking for a singer. They want us to go out, but they won't, bring me until I bring a singer with us. And he had submitted other singers, and they, didn't like something, whatever about them, and said, can we submit your information? I'm like, please do. So, I gave him my little kit, and they liked me. Thank you, Jesus.
Oh, wow.
And so the very first thing we did, it was in Myanmar, Burma. So there is this ship called the Orient Express ship, which I didn't know there was a ship. I only heard of the Orient Express train. But it's in Myanmar, and it just goes up and down the Pagan River every day. So our job for 1 week was to perform, once every night on the top of this ship. And so they were bringing in their different Asian Hennessy distributors every night. So, one night they brought in somebody from Hong Kong. The other night it was somebody from North Korea. Just, every night someone from a different part of Asia, they're a distributor for Hennessy. So, and it happened to be during Chinese New Year, right around Valentine's Day. So, and that was my first time ever going to Asia. And it was so amazing. Oh my gosh, the people were beautiful. We got to tour, different parts of Myanmar and meet a lot of the people and learn how they lived. So from there, Hennessy loved us so much, they booked us on this smooth and mellow Asia and European tour. So that was a 3-week crazy tour. I mean, it was hectic, but it was wonderful. And then from there, an agent approached me and said, hey, they love you over here. Do you want to do more things? And so she started booking me to Hong Kong, Bangkok, Tokyo, India, Singapore, Kuala Lumpur. I mean, everywhere. And I mean, so many places in Asia. And I'd spend 3 months, 6 months, just so much. And so for a period of 10 years, maybe a little bit more, I was over there more than I was in the United States. And I'm so grateful because honestly, and I'm a little ashamed, I'm not proud of this. I was kind of lumping a lot of Asian people into a box. And a lot of Americans are guilty of this. You would think, okay, you go to Asia, they're Asians. I didn't know much about the differences in their cultures. I would, knew a little bit of the differences, but not enough. And just by going over there, like I said, the first time going to Myanmar, and I saw these people who looked so different from a lot of the Asian people that I had met and come to know. And, learning how they just, their culture was so different from Chinese people, from Thai people, from Japanese people. Then when I went to Bangkok for 3 months, I was like, wow, they're completely different. Then I went to Hong Kong for 3 months. Wow. And then I learned how people in Hong Kong are so different from people on mainland China. They consider themselves completely different. And then when I went to Singapore for 6 months, learned how, they're a mixture of Chinese people, Indian people, and Malaysian people. And the Chinese people in Singapore are completely different from the Chinese people on mainland China and the Chinese people in, on Hong Kong. So just these differences, I would have had no way of knowing had I not been there. And
that's why I love travel. And there's no way to know. So me sitting on this side, having not had that experience, that's exactly how I'm assuming. And I'm sure that's the same. The same is true for when people think about Black people. They think that we're all one way, but we're very diverse in the way that you just
the conversations that you get to have when you go over there. Even, and in Europe, of course. I've been to Italy many times.
Ooh, I love Italy.
Oh my gosh, I love it so much. And, just as you were describing, I love the conversations that you get to have with different people and their perceptions of Black people that, that they get from television. You know, they're thinking, all black
so
women are like the Real Housewives of whatever.
Yes,
and,
yes.
Just the opportunity to have conversations, be it abroad or even being people of different, from different heritage here, based or because of my travels. I mean, I've always been, one to, mix it up anyway. And I love, my friends, black, white, Asian, Hispanic, whatever. And I've got a pretty broad spectrum of friends. But after traveling over there and after having these conversations, it's giving me more of a reason to really reach out. Like, for instance, I was out doing this shoot back before the whole social distancing.
Oh, yeah.
And there was a movie screening of Tiffany Haddish. Mm-hmm. And, she was here. And so that, here we are, just all of us broadcasters. And yes, the film starred Tiffany Haddish, but it was a pretty diverse, group of people who were in the film. So at the screening, the broadcast screening, we got to meet Tiffany. But before that, it was so mixed up of, black, white, Hispanic, Asian people, just us broadcasters. I go out of my way to go and meet my, brothers and sisters who are not black, just to talk to them about how they're doing and with what they're doing with their broadcast and you know what I mean? Just their perspective and just to kind of learn from them about what they're doing. And I love that. I love that. And I encourage all of us to keep that going.
A taste of humanity.
A taste of humanity. What a great way to say that.
It's a taste of humanity. And there's so much to learn because I, like you, have, many different friends, and I enjoy learning about their cultures. And, I've been invited to places that I wouldn't have had an opportunity to go if I were not open to their experiences. And so I absolutely encourage people to just, open the dialogue with compassion and get to know humanity, because it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. We're all very different, have a lot to learn from each other. And traveling absolutely gives you that opportunity.
It does. And what's so funny, my biggest takeaway, especially early on, when I realized we're all the same. We speak a different language. We look different.
Yes.
But we have the same concerns about our families. We're the same.
Yes.
And once you figure that out, it really takes all the mystique away.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And you know what? And I know you know this, being a hostess of Pillow Talk. Love is universal. You talk about a relationship, goodness. You've got hours of dialogue, no matter what race.
Yes, it's the same. And it's so funny. My girlfriends, like I've got a good girlfriend still over in Tokyo, Mina, she's Japanese. And one of the things that really bound our friendship, we would talk about our love lives. And, I had said to her, I was like, Mina, before I came to Japan the first time, people were saying, all right, Angela, you're pretty gregarious, but don't let it hurt your feelings that a lot of Japanese people are very closed and they won't let you into their culture. They only stick to Japanese people, which is not true. But that's how a lot of people think. So when Mina and I started becoming friends, I told her that. I was like, you know what? I didn't think I was going to make any real friends. I mean, because at first, of course, we're getting to know each other and we were just kind of superficial friends, but we became really close friends. I mean, things that you don't tell a lot of people. We started confiding in each other, especially with the whole love life situation,
right.
And then I told her that, and she said, it's unfortunate that that's their reputation. And she said, there is a little truth to that. She said, it's not easy that people will just let you in, because if you come over here as an ugly American or an ugly any other culture, then no, of course you're not going to be embraced. But if you're, embracing the culture, trying to learn a little bit of the language, trying to eat the food and just embracing their culture, yes, it's wide open to you. And that's true of any other culture.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right?
And
so I was happy to learn that.
The key is love and compassion. I mean, who's going to close the door if you're showing that you are interested and you're compassionate about it? Yeah.
That's right. That's universal.
Goodness. That is universal. I want to ask you one more question about travel, though. I know historically, Black artists were leaving the United States and going to Europe because they felt more accepted there. Did you find any differences there, or any experiences that led you to understand why they might have made those choices?
Yes. Do
you mind sharing that? I'm so
No, not at all. So prior to me going over there as an artist, I would talk to different jazz musicians. I was hosting Bet on Jazz, which was a 24-hour jazz network that BET established. And I would ask a lot of these jazz musicians that very same question. And they would say, back in the day when people weren't, really spending a whole lot of money to support a lot of the jazz musicians in the United States, they embraced and loved the music over there, and that's in Europe and in Asia. They would make a lot more money. People would come out in droves. They'd buy them music. They would just really treat them like rock stars. Okay, so fast forward to me. We go over to Myanmar, and then when we did the Europe and Asia tour with Hennessy, they were treating us like rock stars. I mean, rock stars. These were the fans coming out, just loving these American musicians. I mean, we were bringing it. Let me just tell you, though. These are top musicians, from New York. We were, definitely bringing the music, and they loved it. Wow. They embraced it. If you are, studying and you are just really, truly bringing the music, and that, be it jazz, be it R&B, they love American culture and they love our music. And they get it. I mean, you go to the, back when Tower Records, was around. I remember the first time I went into Tower Records in Tokyo, and I saw this larger than life picture of Marcus Miller. And they love Marcus Miller. And oh my gosh, they would, they'd buy his music like crazy. I remember when Michael Jackson passed away, I was in Tokyo performing. Wow. And, because they're on the complete opposite time zone, I woke up to my phone ringing in the middle of the night, and it was a friend of mine calling me to tell me, turn on the news, Michael Jackson just died. I turn on the news,
oh my goodness,
and the people are running out in the middle of the street, freaking out in Tokyo. And there were, these news stories of them just storming the record stores and, buying up all of his music, just running down the street, crying. I mean, serious fans. People were reacting here too, but I'm just saying, over there it was no different. Wow. They love us and love our music. They embrace, unfortunately, they embrace our music more than we do. Here, let me put it to you this way, and a lot of artists agree because they have said the same thing.
Yes.
In America, we're all about what's your latest hit, and based on that, we'll support you. Over there, it doesn't matter. Good music is good music.
Yes.
It's about the music. It doesn't even have to be new. It's good music. If you're performing and you go over to one of these places and they love your music, as an artist, if they're down with you, they're coming out. They're going to come out, they're going to buy your music, and they're going to show you.
Wow. You know what? I think that's unfair in America, because I honestly believe that fans of music are fans of music. And I think that it's become more commercialized and in a way that keeps us away from our favorite artists. Because I remember someone telling me once that, the artists of the 70s and 80s would have to have social media updates and have so many followers now before the companies would send them out for concert tours. And I was mortified. I was what? How dare they? Because they've spent organically all these years building a fan base, and now in this date, in the present, I'm not qualified because I don't have 100,000 followers.
Thank you. It's what have you done for me lately?
Yes.
It's so not fair. I was just talking to Will Downing about this yesterday.
Wow.
We have he's featured on our HUR at Home. So every week on Thursday nights we have this music feature.
Not only is he an amazing singer, but a beautiful person. Oh, see what I mean? And poof.
And there he is,
But we, have different ones every night, but every Thursday it's music. And so, we were fortunate to have my dear friend, the very talented Will Downing on.
I love him.
And
I love Will.
I love him. I love him so much. And he was saying the very same thing. We were saying the exact same thing. So you're right.
Wow.
Yeah.
So while we are, this is just my little 2 cents. While we are creating change for not only the brutality that we experience in the street from law enforcement, and there's so many other avenues that we need to pay attention to and make a difference in. And music is absolutely one of them, because I just feel like we have been unfortunately separated from the artists and the music that we love because the companies are in the middle of it. I don't know all of the logistics, but I know that we're being separated from them. And unfortunately, there are a lot of artists that cannot afford to have a concert. They can't afford to promote themselves. And what happened to the company backing them? What happened to the support of music? And I think the average person does not know or understand that.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. It is a new day, and unfortunately, things have changed so much in the music industry. Gone are the days that, you sign with a record label and, they'll put everything behind you and, you're a hit and everybody's going to go out and buy your records. Yes. It's completely different now. Good or bad. I mean, people can put out their own music. They can stream their own music. And, is everybody going to hear about your music or hear your music?
Bottom line is you need the advertising dollars. Yeah, no, you need the marketing.
You need the machine behind you.
You
and, everybody and their mother can, create some music and put it out on social media. So, it's all out there. It's all out there. And so, I guess if it's someone that you love and you haven't heard from them, these days you can Google them and maybe support them, see if they are on social media, see if they are streaming their music and get behind them that way. And we'll kind of see how this all plays out.
Yeah, well, I'm all for change on that, because there was something else that I noticed too. Asking people, their favorite genre, R&B has always been significant.
Yes.
But it disappeared, and they left a lot of fans going, what happened?
Right. Yes.
What happened? I know they didn't all fall on the face of the earth.
Oh my gosh. And I would like to think that it's trying to come back. I mean, with artists like Will Downing, with artists like Kem, with artists like Raheem Devon, with artists like Jaheim, and on and on. There are a few more who are bringing real R&B, Anthony Hamilton, real soul music. And not just the guys. I mean, you've got Lettucey, you've got, so many, Layla Hathaway, so many, I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And I don't want to leave many out, and there's so many I haven't named, but R&B is not going anywhere. The real R&B is here. We, I think, are just going through this, trying to find it. I encourage people, listen to my radio station. Listen to WHUR. I'm hosting the original Quiet Storm. We play a lot of these artists. Kenny Lattimore, you know, and a lot of the, you know, R&B stations are still, you know, playing them. But I think we're going through some kind of a metamorphosis.
Yeah.
And, you know, soul music, R&B music is here to stay. I think we have to find it. The artists that we love, we have to seek them out and support them.
Yes, yes. And like you said, follow stations and programming like yours that will introduce us to more of it. But, you know, even programming, though I love radio programming, I'm not saying anything bad about it, but you know, there's a lot of movement there. There's not a consistency. And unfortunately, the only place that we've ever been able to really follow it is through a Quiet Storm program or, you know, something like that. So thank goodness that you are still keeping the torch, not only for your fellow artists, but what is your favorite genre? And I know I've got to let you go. We've passed an hour. Thank you so much for staying. I could talk to you forever. But
well, you know what? I didn't have the heart to tell you that I keep getting this low battery. It's about to cut us off, and I hope it doesn't. But before it does, I do want to thank you so much for having me today. This has been such an honor. I love R&B and I love jazz. Those are my two favorites.
Singing?
Those are my favorites. And singing, you know, I'm a jazz singer and I do, you know, I write a lot of music. The music I write and sing is R&B. So like, you know, like some of the singers like Will Downing, like Mesa, like Gregory Porter, you know, I don't know, I guess I'm in their category, kind of R&B and jazz.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Now, where can we find your music?
You know, everywhere music is sold. I'm working on some new stuff, but, you know, I've got 2 CDs out. Will Downing, Marcus Miller, and Gerald Albright were kind enough to collaborate with me on my rendition of Pillow Talk.
Hey, baby, let me stay. I don't care what your friends all have to say. What your friends all say is fine, but it can't compete with this pillow talk of mine. You can't find love on a one-way street. It takes two to tango, takes two to even compete. So boy, just put that stop sign down and let's get together before the day runs us down.
I love that song so much. And but I'm working on new things, so I'll keep you posted. Thank you so much for asking.
That is awesome. May I play your song after this interview? I would love people to hear it.
Please, it would be such a high honor. And if you don't have it, I'm going to sing it and send it to you.
You can sing it too, but darn low batteries.
Low batteries! Saved by the low batteries.
That is so funny.
I love your energy. I love what you're doing just by promoting Black women in radio. You're doing us all such a service and just keeping Black love alive. I love how you're just really enhancing the culture. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Angela. And thank you for becoming one of the 2020 Black Women in Radio influencers as well. We're celebrating you all the month of June, and we've got some great surprises toward the end of the year as well. So thank you for becoming an influencer, and we love you so much.
I love you right back. It's a high honor. Keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you. Be careful as you exit your VIP seats. They will be waiting for you next Wednesday when we talk to Yvonne Daniels. Make sure you subscribe to Black Women in Radio podcast on all social media and check out our website at www.blackwomeninradio.com.
Here we go!
the passion and the determination and the resilience for whatever your dream is, then it's not really a dream. I had just accepted Dallas when Houston said, you know, we have a job for you. And I ended up going to Dallas from Charlotte. And then, you know, from there to New York, because I was told you'll never get a job in New York. No didn't mean anything to me. And just the fierceness for which I went about going after that, no didn't matter at all to me, because I was going to succeed. The metaphor of the baton is just, I'm sticking my hand out to help you. Someone stuck their hand out to help me, and it's a team that goes around that track, and we continue to help each other by passing on and handing off and handing up to the other. I unapologetically love my life. Even the things that I thought I wanted, or that I did want, or that I didn't get, that I don't have now, I am so good with that.